Very good. Okay, well, do want to welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. I know we've got a lot of cooking to do today, so we're all here in the right place with culinary medicine. And welcome to people who have returned from other classes and to our new people who might be joining us for the first time today. You are here with Chef Alyssa. She has been a chef with over 25 years of experience. She just combines wonderful flavors, good nutrition. We're always excited to have her here with us and learn from her. We also have Allison Welch, who's our wellness coach over on the Big Island, and myself, Heather Charles. I'm over here on Maui. So we are well represented across the Hawaiian Islands today. So as we begin to welcome you, this might be your first time being introduced to plant-based styles of eating, and you might be asking yourself, okay, what's really so special about this particular style of eating? Well, in addition to cutting your carbon footprint in half, it's also the only diet shown to prevent and reverse diseases such as type 2 diabetes and coronary artery disease. So that's a pretty big deal for nutrition, right? Prevent and reverse disease. So what is the whole food plant-based really about? Well, it celebrates food in all of its natural form, which means it's closest to the way that it was grown. So something that our ancestors would recognize as being food. So that might be fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. And we want to minimize the intake of processed foods. Processed foods comes in boxes and packages, and pre-made foods often have a lot of refined sugars, white flours, and animal-derived foods. So maximizing whole foods, minimizing processed foods. And we recognize it can be a little daunting to try to change our eating style, which is why we have the wonderful Michael Pollan. He's an American author and journalist. He's written several books about food and health, and he coined these simple phrases here: eat food, not too much, and mostly plants. Now, most of us know vegetables are good for us, and we still might have trouble eating them. And it's usually because they've been seen as not really being delicious. They're usually portrayed, I think of all the movies and the TV shows, it's a chore to eat your vegetables. So we hope to really shift your mindset and open you up to a new way of experiencing healthy food. So I like to say we want to, we want to love the food that is going to love us back. So while we hope that today's class plants some seeds of curiosity about healthier cooking, I'm going to put in the chat a link to a video series that Stanford School of Medicine put together in 2016, and it's a series called Food and Health. And we really strongly encourage you to check this out. It's a series of 17 videos. They're short, you guys, 3 to 5 minutes, giving you real quick practical skills, information on why and how we can eat healthier. And before we jump into the recipes, just want to take a moment to draw your attention to some of the handouts that were included in your link for today's class. The recipes for both of the recipes Chef will be going over today, the links to those should have been in your class invite, as well as this version of a plant-based healthy plate. So the healthy plate is based on current research and health data where we divide our plates into 3 different parts, and we're maximizing vegetables. So vegetables are the star of the plate. They should be taking up half of the plate. We're going to help you to do that. And then you also notice that the word meat has been replaced by protein. And that means it can also include plant-based proteins, which we talk about in this class, such as beans, lentils, or tofu. The main takeaway from this handout is that you want to make your plate really colorful. If you have a lot of color on your plate, you know you're moving in the right direction. So instead of counting the calories, we want to count the number of plants. Now, if you want to learn more about this style, this healthy plate style of eating, we have a separate 90-minute class. It's virtual, taught by our registered dietitians, and it's a class called Get Your Plate in Shape for Kaiser Permanente members. It explores different variations of meals in this format, and we'll have some more information about all of our classes at the end of our time together today, so you can continue to build on the knowledge you have. All right, did I miss anything, Allison? We got it all covered?
You got it all covered, and you had some great puns in there. I'm very impressed,
Yeah.
Heather.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we like to keep it punchy, right?
Yeah.
Now, let's see. Before we get into cooking, I'm going to pull up the recipes that Chef's going to be preparing today, so she can briefly review those ingredients with you. Again, in the email invitation, you'll have those links to those recipes, or you can always take a picture with your camera if you want to grab it off the screen here too. I also want to just acknowledge, there might be a wide range of people joining tonight. Again, for some of you, you might be here for the first time and just wondering, what am I supposed to do with a vegetable on my plate? And some of you might be wanting to eat exclusively plant-based and be more advanced. This class is all about just supporting folks with resources to take this and move in the direction that you choose to go in. These recipes can be adaptable to personal tastes and preferences as we go along. If you have questions about maybe a substitute or about an ingredient, please put them in the chat. Allison and I will be watching for that, and we'll bring that question forward. We'll give her the opportunity to answer your question. So congratulate yourself for being here today. Enjoy being a part of it, and I will pass this over to Chef Alyssa.
Okay, hello. Good evening, good afternoon. So we're going to start with, we have two recipes we're making today. We're making a quinoa salad with a sesame ginger dressing. And then we are also making a spinach, oh gosh, mushroom, white bean, brown rice loaf. And we're going to be starting with that one today. Would you like me to go through the ingredients of the recipes?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a quinoa salad, and I am going to put the recipe up. I'm going to read it off of in front of me because it's small print. So what I have here is we're going to start out with quinoa, rinse and drain, cooking it in water. And then once it's cooked, we're going to be adding in the bok choy, edamame, red bell pepper, carrots, cilantro, and salt to taste. And then we're going to mix that in a mixing bowl. And then on the side, we're going to be creating a dressing with toasted sesame oil. And I used avocado oil today, fresh lime juice, agave sambal, which is a chili paste, grated ginger, and garlic. So you mix that all together, and then you toss it in with the quinoa. And then you separately toast some nuts, and I had toasted some slivered almonds. And then I tend to put that on right at the end so that they don't get too soft. So that's the quinoa salad we're going to be making.
Wonderful. That seems like a great farmer's market salad because you get so many colorful vegetables in there.
Yes. And then we're going to be making the spinach rice casserole. So the spinach rice casserole is cooking brown rice. And then I went ahead and did that already. And then we're going to saute in some olive oil, some chopped onions, some mushrooms, garlic, and thyme. And then once that's cooked, we're going to be putting that in the bowl with the cooked the cooked brown rice. And then we're going to be adding in some walnuts that are I processed in a small food processor, cannellini beans, which I'm going to partially mash, some cooked spinach, and some cheese. And today I actually have a little bit of both because I had them in the fridge. So I have a little bit of regular cheese grated and a little bit of vegan cheese. So I'm going to combine the two and put it in. And then we're going to bake it in a casserole dish.
Casserole. Yep. Okay.
Casserole.
Great. Well, I'm going to remove the recipes down. If at the end you guys need them back up, just let me know. I'll be happy to put them back up. And then we will spotlight Chef and let her start cooking.
Exactly. And just as she's getting ready to go, if you guys notice you get muted, don't take it personally. I'm just in the background getting things set up over here. So I hope everyone can see on the main screen the chef's pot. So you can always raise your hand or do a thumbs up if you got it, but it's all yours. We can see it right there beautifully, Chef.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to turn my little cooking surface on and get it going. Give me a sec here. This is not my Don't want to overcook it. So I'm going to heat the pan. I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. With this induction burner, things tend to cook really fast, so I want to make sure I don't burn anything. And then I have some chopped red onions I'm going to add in. Okay, I'm going to get the heat up a little bit so things start sizzling. So you can use white onions or red onions. I just happen to have red onions in the house. These recipes that I put together, I firmly believe in just kind of, you work with it, and if you got things in your house that you can plug in, go ahead and plug it in. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy everything that's on the list. We can talk that through as we go along too. So it's sauteing, and what I like to do is I like to cook the onions until they get kind of soft and caramelized, a little bit browned. Watch your heat so that it doesn't get too hot. And for the sake of what we're doing here, I'm going to add in the mushrooms just to speed things around just a little bit. But this actually cooks pretty fast with this induction burner. Okay, and then I have some sliced cremini mushrooms. I tend to like cremini, which are baby portobellos. They're a little brown. I don't know if you can see. If you need me to show you a whole mushroom, I can pull it out of the fridge. I'm going to put the mushrooms kind of flat onto the burner, on the bottom of the saute pan. I like the way that cremini mushrooms hold their shape and the way that they cook.
I think they're almost the same price at the store too. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they hold, they last longer in the fridge too versus there's a lot about storing mushrooms too. I tend to wrap a lot of things in paper towels just to keep extra moisture off.
I was just going to add, as you're doing that, for the people who are like who are like me, who don't cook that much, one thing, just looking at how you have everything kind of measured out and set, it really makes a difference to kind of do that extra step to make it all that much easier.
One of the things that I've learned from cooking mushrooms is if it starts to, things start to stick too much on the bottom of the pan, you can add a little salt on your mushrooms, and salt makes your mushrooms let out some water in the mushrooms, and then it'll loosen the pan up a little bit, so you don't have to add more oil.
Hey, good tip.
Huh?
Great tip. And then on the same side of it, sometimes I've heard not to salt the mushrooms if you're trying to saute them, if they're not sticking. When do you say to usually add the salt if you're using it? Does it make a difference? Or is it just how you were saying, if you need it to get more moisture?
That's generally how I do it. It depends upon the recipe too. But for like something like this, where you're sauteing with the onions, basically, I think it's more the sauteing part. I don't know if I'm answering you correctly. Sorry.
No, you are. It's just sometimes like people put it in, or you feel like if you didn't, they can get kind of watery in there, the opposite of sticking. And so I was wondering if that happens. Good. Now that you say it adds moisture, it's great.
Right. So let me let me think on that one a little bit, because sometimes I add salt as I'm cooking. With this, like in this recipe, it's doing really well with no salt at all. It's starting to let out some moisture here. I'll add the salt later. It's just kind of, sometimes you don't want to keep adding more oil. It's just like a little tip for that situation. So I'm just going to quickly, because of what's going on here, I'm just going to quickly add in the thyme. Sorry, sometimes I can't like focus and talk and think.
And is that dried thyme?
That's dry thyme. Thank you. You can use
Okay.
fresh too. I just tend to have dried thyme in the house.
Yeah.
So I've got the thyme and garlic. My big thing is that I don't want the garlic to burn. So I've got the mushrooms sauteing. You could add the garlic and the thyme at that point too all together. It's just I was trying to focus on your questions and not burning what's below me at the same time.
We did have one question too. Someone asking, can you leave the stem on the mushroom?
Yes, and this is just a habit of mine. Very good question. Okay, so just let me quickly, so I'm going to now take this off the heat. So I'm going to turn it off. Like again, and the way I do this, if I really want it, just slow down the heating process. I've got it off the burner, which these ones turn off anyways. Get it off the hot part. Yes, I don't know, I think it looks really nice when I always tend to trim the bottoms of the mushroom stems, and then by habit, I like trim it all the way up, but I think it's nice. It looks nice, you know, when you have a little bit of the stem. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is, this is always my challenge, is I'm gonna put this on the ground over here behind me so that I can move.
Take your time, Chef. We don't want you burning yourself at all. Although chefs seem to have asbestos hands. I don't know. I'm always impressed.
There's nothing there. It's more the way I pop, honey. More the way I got that.
Those did cook up quickly. That's nice to see.
They did.
It really didn't take long at all. That was great.
Yeah, and you know, I think it sometimes depends on the type of mushroom too, how much liquid they have in them. Oh, okay. So I'm going to bring the bowl in the middle. Do we see that okay? Okay.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. So now I'm going to take all that wonderful onions, mushrooms, thyme, garlic mixture in the bowl. Sorry, I'm just trying to be mindful of heat. Okay, so now what we've got here is we're going to add in the rest of the cooked rice. And this is 1.5 cups rice, brown rice. And what I tend to do, one of the things that I tend to do is I put a piece of kombu in my rice. So kombu is like the kelp, kind of the thick seaweed. And it just adds a little bit of minerals to your rice. So that's just something I do because I'm always trying to think ways of get more nutrients.
Do you add that in while you're cooking it?
Yeah. So when I started, I just put it in the cooking water.
Oh, kind of like how you'd add a bay leaf to something.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't change the flavor or anything. It just kind of adds a little bit of, well, it might add a little bit of umami flavor. And then I take it out. So I've got the rice. And then
how do you spell that?
Kombu,
what you put in?
K-O-M-B-U, kombu.
K-O-M-B-U.
It comes in long kind of kelp-like strips, and then you cut it. It's got like it's not salt. What is it? It's like the natural MSG, you know, kind of like a white powder on it, and then you just snip it. I snip it into 1-inch pieces, and I add it into my brown rice. That's just me. But I figure, you know, it's a good way to get it in there. Okay, so I have some walnuts that I've processed. I have one of those small little food processors. So I just process it fine. You can also add in finely chopped nuts. You can plug in anything here that you have in the house. It could be pecans, it could be cashews, it could be Brazil nuts, you know, whatever. If you've got macadamia nuts that you have, you know, you can plug that in. You can also grind up sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. So it's like whatever you like and what you have on hand, you can plug in here. And then what I have, this helps for as a binder, kind of like the pinto, pinto bean, but also the tofu patties, the Korean tofu patties. I have cannellini beans. And so this is a cup of cannellini beans that I've rinsed and drained. And I'm going to mash it with my potato mashers a little bit just to help with the binding and protein. And then what I did, I wanted to show you, I had a little left over. So this is a great way to, if you've got extra, just put it in a Ziploc bag and you can pop it in the freezer for another use. You know, I really like white beans because there's so many things you can do with them, especially the cannellini beans. You can, there's lots of different ways. They're great in soups to make things creamy, you know, instead of having to use cream. You can just blend in white beans with a soup, like a tomato basil soup. You can add in white beans and it adds some protein as well as some creaminess without having to add like half and half or milk or anything. So I'm going to take this and move this over here.
Great tip.
Thank you. And then I have some salt and pepper. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to start mixing this. You can see this makes a good amount. And then I have spinach. So what I did was, this was a little bit of a, I put in the recipe 1.5 cups fresh cooked spinach. And I had bought, I happened to be at Whole Foods, and I had bought a 5-ounce package of spinach. And then what I did was I used, you know, the saute pan that I did the mushrooms and the onions in before I did this before the class, but a great tip, I mean, for me is because I always don't want to do too many dishes, is I would recommend cooking the spinach in that same pan. You know, just put a little bit of water, start the spinach kind of on low, and I put a lid on and just cook it for like, you know, 3 to 5 minutes till it wilts. And then I put it in a fine mesh strainer. I take it out with tongs so it'll drip, and then put it in a fine mesh strainer. Let me show you what that is. And then I just strain that cooked spinach over a bowl like this. And then once it's cool, I mush it with my hands to get the extra liquid out. And I put it on a cutting board and I chop it. So that's kind of, and then I rinse out that pan and then I have it ready for the sauteing process. So it's just one less thing that you have to clean.
Is it also possible to use like the frozen chopped spinach?
Yes, thank you for saying that. So sure, you can defrost your spinach, the frozen spinach, and then just again, make sure it's chopped and get all the extra liquid out. And then at that point, you can put it into the casserole. Thank you for bringing that up. Good reminder. But just a good, for me too, lesson is, I don't think this 5 ounces did not come out to a 1.5 cups. So you might want to do 10 ounces or get the, and then there's also extra liquid that still comes out. So I tend to just squeeze it one more time, even though I've chopped and squeezed it. Excuse me, I did that backwards. Costco has a great size of spinach if you can use it fast enough, you know that. I'm sure Sam's Club does too. I just don't shop at Sam's Club, but you know, the big bags of spinach. So this is the kind of thing that can be subjective. How much spinach. You could also put in things like lightly blanched kale, or even thinly julienne collards, other greens, whatever you have on hand, and you can add that in for your green. So one thing that's really helpful for this, kind of like the patties and burgers, is to get your hands in here. So I've got some gloves on, and I am mixing this up. to get it really well mixed. And pull up the mushrooms from the bottom. Mix in the white beans, and then I have the cheese here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save just a little for the top. You can also do that with the mushrooms if you want, just to make pretty. You can save a little bit of the sauteed mushrooms on the side and just kind of place them on the top to make it look nice. Sometimes I do that with the nuts, like save a few walnuts and put some just like walnut halves on the top. Just kind of make it presentation nice. So other things that you can add here, instead of thyme, you could add oregano. You could add Italian seasoning. Those would all mix well here. You could add something like fresh basil. So you can see that this recipe is it's real versatile, and you can make patties out of it.
Oh, good idea. And somebody was asking if you could do sweet or bell peppers instead of the mushrooms too.
Sure could. I think this would be nice too if you made like, if you baked like the patties and then make like a mushroom gravy. You know, don't put the mushrooms in and then make a mushroom gravy and serve it over. I think that would be delicious. Another way you could do it is you could put it in cupcake tins. You know, they could be lined with the silicone liners or just oiled, and you could make like little kind of loaves. So there's all kinds of ideas here on how you could use this. This is a recipe I've made a lot of times. I really love this recipe because it's really, it's like comfort food. So I have a casserole dish. This is actually, you could do an 8x8, you could do a 9-inch pie plate, you could do all those other things that I mentioned. This is a 7x11, and I really like this shape. And I like it too because it's got one of those, is it Pyrex? That, well, the lids that go on, the plastic lids. You can store it in the fridge, you know. So I'm going to take this. I had a silicone basting brush that I put a little bit of olive oil. You could also do like parchment paper. I'm going to take my little well-mixed mixture and add it in. And one of the things that I do is, if for some reason, you know, I think it's going to be like too thin, based on what dish you have, right? You might not have the, you know, the 8x8 pan or the 9-inch pie plate, you know, whatever you have. You can also do it like this, right? So you can make it to shape. You know, you could just pat it in and have a 1-inch little space there. Sometimes I do that if I'm cooking for people to make it easier for them to get it out of the dish, is I'll make like a 1-inch space all the way around so that they can get their little spatula out easy and get it after they've baked it. Okay. So this is about like a little more than 1 inch in thickness. And then I have a little bit of cheese. I'm just going to sprinkle on. Again, my cheese is, oh gosh, 2 mixtures. One is like a vegan Mexican, and the other one is a mild cheddar, regular. Okay. And then I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven. I'm going to get that started. And then I'm going to change out my dishes. And then we'll start with the quinoa salad. Anybody have any questions? Or maybe I'll pop it in the oven and then I'll answer questions.
We'll give them a moment to
Perfect.
type them in.
Okay.
Everyone can have them. Exactly. Getting us hungry and ready to make something good.
I know, so many great tips. I never thought
Right?
about the not using up the whole pan.
Exactly. I was
Now you
thinking
gotta
the
use the
same
whole pan.
thing.
But like, oh, I never thought about just going to the size that I need if I don't have the right pan. So that right there could save us a trip to the store, right?
Yeah, save money.
Other questions? Any questions, you guys? Everybody seems like they're pretty good so far. I'm excited to see what this looks like when it's out of the oven.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to find a way to use my spinach from the Costco size, because you always use, and you always feel good because it's not very expensive at all.
Right.
And then you have it, and then, so that's the
Get
great.
away with
I'm
the,
like,
yeah, you can
there we
eliminate the
go.
Costco guilt, right? Where we buy
Yes.
it and we have good intentions of getting through that entire bag of spinach, and you know, we
And
don't
the
always
leftover
reach the
brown
finish line.
rice, right?
Yeah.
All these things that have such a good, like, multi-purpose, the extra beans in
Mhm.
the can when you open for something
Yep.
else. So this is a great, like, if you have those extra things, you could make this pretty easily. So love that.
Yeah. Helps with meal prepping too, right? Because then you know if I'm going to make
That's
2 meals,
right.
I'm going to have the salad, and then I can use that other part for the other rest of my spinach for this meal. Yeah, it helps to plan ahead and use up all the ingredients.
And we
Oh,
know
Margot
that's a smart
freezes her
thing to
fresh
do.
spinach. I've never tried that. I guess why not, right?
Exactly. It's true.
And I can see all the color coming out here, which is exactly what we talked about with the healthy plate, right? Adding all that color in.
I know it
Yeah.
makes you so happy looking at all that
Yeah,
color
doesn't
right
it? It looks
there.
like a
It really
rainbow. You can
does.
put them in color coordinated order. Oh, that's great, Margot. Thanks for sharing.
Great. Great ideas.
Okay. So we have quinoa. Did you want to talk about your quinoa, or do you want to do it?
Yeah, I say Allison, maybe
Yes.
before
Why
she
don't
gets
we
started, let's give us the 411 on quinoa.
let's give her a second to get her things all laid out. I was so
I think
excited. We're trying to figure
I'm
out.
ready.
That's right. We'll just quickly say, though it's technically a seed, quinoa is classified as a whole grain and it's a good source of plant protein and fiber. 1 cup of cooked quinoa provides about 8 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber. So sometimes, if you think about it, if you think of quinoa, it provides twice the protein and 5 grams of fiber. That's the same amount more than white rice. So, due to the higher quantity of protein and fiber, quinoa is not only the healthier choice, but it can fill you up faster and it allows you for smaller portion sizes. So, those are my little words on quinoa. You can jump in.
Love
But
it. Thanks,
me
Allison.
too.
That was great. I went ahead and cooked this quinoa. I know I mentioned that earlier, but I uh, didn't take it out of the pan. So this is 1.5 cups. It's similar to brown rice where you do a 2-to-1 ratio. And when quinoa is cooked, if you haven't worked with quinoa before, it gets like this little tail that kind of shows you when it's cooked. It puffs up and there's like this little tail that comes out. And what you do is you let it cool in the pan for about 10 minutes, like rice, and then you fluff it with a fork. And I have one of these like big kind of a serving forks, so that works great for this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, first I just wanted to say that quinoa, yes, it's good to rinse your quinoa before you cook it with a fine mesh strainer, kind of like I showed you when I did the spinach straining. Some quinoa, if you get the red quinoa or the what's called brown, there's 2 different shades of quinoa. They tend to be smaller, and sometimes when you're rinsing quinoa, they can actually go through your strainer if the pukas aren't small enough. So just be careful that you might lose a lot in the sink.
Or they get stuck and it's really hard to get them out.
That too, very good point. So there's just be mindful. Sometimes I do like if I have a strainer that's, I think that it might be too big, I'll put like 2 strainers together to try and catch it, between the 2. And if you buy, again, this is just not like I'm promoting anything, but if you happen to buy quinoa at Costco, and read the label, because some of the other places too where you can buy it, they've already pre-rinsed it, so you don't have to even go through the rinsing process. So the bag I have here is I didn't rinse it. It was from Costco, so that was one step that I didn't have to go through. I like to buy the different colors and then kind of mix them with the white quinoa because it's pretty. It makes a nice presentation. So you can buy that often in, I know that Whole Foods has it. You can also buy it in bulk in some of the health markets like Down to Earth or Cuinoa here locally on Oahu. I'm not sure what is on the outer islands.
Yeah, I've seen the tricolor, I think it's tricolor quinoa packages. And I think they all cook similarly.
Yes, yes, it's a 2-to-1 ratio, about 20 minutes. So you bring it to a boil. I tend to bring the water to a boil, add the quinoa in, then reduce the heat, stir it, reduce the heat, and then set the timer for 20 minutes, put the lid on. Some people will like put the quinoa in the pot with the water, but it starts to actually, the cooking time starts when it starts to boil. So then sometimes it can get overcooked. So it's just something to think about. So that's why I like wait till it's boiling and then add it in and then set the timer. Some of you, quinoa is great because it absorbs, like rice, absorbs a lot of whatever you put into the water. So you could do, a lot of times I'll do like olena or turmeric because it makes a really pretty color. Or you can infuse it with like a bay leaf if you're doing something savory. I do that a lot with rice too, especially not necessarily brown rice, but like basmati or jasmine. I'll add like, infuse it with lemongrass or kaffir lime or cinnamon, cloves. You know, if you're doing something Indian, cardamom, it'll infuse the flavor in the cooking liquid and then it'll infuse it into the rice and quinoa. Oh. So just something to think about.
We had one question of can you cook it in a rice cooker?
Yes, yes, you can. And I actually saw a recipe where you can cook it in an Instant Pot too, which I haven't tried. Yeah, I tend to just cook mine on a pot on the stove. That just seems, I just default to that. It's easier for me. But whether pulling out another appliance from under the cupboard and then, you know, plugging it in, I just go for the stove. But yes, whatever works for you, whatever you'll do, whatever is easiest. There's lots of options for cooking your grains. So we have our cooked quinoa, and you can see it makes quite a bit. This makes a very hearty salad. And then what I have here is, this is nice and easy. We're just going to mix all of these ingredients in. So I have bok choy. I don't know how many people have done this, but bok choy is really nice, kind of like a cabbage. It is in the cabbage family, but you can chop it up and add it in as a crunchy green raw in your salad. You could also add in something else if you want, along that lines. So you've got your bok choy. Let me see if I can follow this. Edamame, which is cooked. So it was interesting. This package of edamame said you could microwave it for 30 seconds, which I haven't seen that before. And it also, it was a little vague. This was one that came from Foodland. It didn't say if it was already cooked or not, because usually they'll say on the package if the edamame is cooked. This one didn't. And the other thing you can do with edamame is, if it's frozen, which usually they are, you can pop it into the quinoa cooking liquid and cook it with the quinoa. So that's another step that you can make things.
That's a good tip.
Yeah. So just one less thing to do. Then you have, your red bell pepper. So I've sliced it. So I've got my red. Oops, that one looks like my knife did not go all the way through. Okay, there we go. And carrots.
Got another good question. Can you cook never mind. Sorry, that was an answer. Can cook the edamame. I'm sorry.
Okay. Hopefully did I answer kind of, sort of? Yeah.
Yes, okay. Heather was just following it up. Okay.
All right. So I'm just starting to slowly toss this in because this bowl is, this is my large bowl. Carefully. Cilantro, I don't know what happened to my cilantro from yesterday. I had cilantro, today I don't. So you have some, this is parsley, chopped parsley, but it just goes to show you could do basil, cilantro, parsley in here. And then we're going to add a little bit, of salt. And I have Himalayan salt here. And then we're going to make the dressing. And then we're going to toss in the dressing. So you can see this is a good amount.
That's what I put in the chat. It would be good for meal prep for lunches for the week, and divide it up into some little containers and put it in the fridge. Just maybe don't put the dressing on it, and then take the dressing with you to work or wherever you're going, and
add it in.
Yep.
Okay, so what we've got here is, what did I do? I kept it separate. So I had the toasted sesame oil. I put avocado oil, and then I squeezed fresh limes. So I have the three things combined here. And then I wanted to show you some of my favorite tools because I used them making this dressing. So this is my grater that I like to use. So I grated the ginger. I peeled the ginger with a sharp, one of these small little knives. I peeled the skin off, and then I grated it with this grater. And then I turn it, it's all kind of sticks on the bottom, and then I scoop it out into over here. This is my ginger. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but you can also take all that grated ginger and squeeze it, and you'll get a bunch of ginger juice. That's really neat if you don't want all the fiber. And then the other thing I did was I took the lime, and this is this woman who helps me when I've done some teaching at KCC in the non-credit culinary program. She taught me, you take this, the lime and lemon, what is this called? Like a juicer. Is that what you call it?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, okay. She told me, usually you think you put the rounded side here and the cut side there, and then you squish it. She says go backwards. So the cut side goes down, and then you press it this way, and you get more juice out of it. So that's one of the little tips that I use to get lime and lemon juice out of this tool. And then the other thing that I really like to have is a garlic press. So I put 2 cloves of garlic in here, press it through. And then I tend to use the back of a knife and scrape it off into a bowl. And then so you don't if you do the sharp part of your knife, then it will dull it. So use the back side of your knife.
I've heard people use the peel in it or without the peel. I've always taken the peel off the garlic. Have you ever done it in the garlic press with it, or always peeled?
I've done it both ways. I find it's a lot easier to, I find it's a lot easier to push it through when there's not that peel on. Sometimes I will just cut the connecting end so that it will squish out easier and just not take the whole peel off, just cut off that end. Does that make sense when I say connecting end? It's the part.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. But I had a friend who gave me part of their Costco peeled garlic. So I have this small snack Ziploc, so I put those 2 peeled ones in, and that was wonderful because it just went squish right through. So it's really kind of whatever you got. The other thing is you can just mince it fine. When I worked at Culinary Market years ago, I had a coworker who used to take this and grate the garlic with this. And that would be almost like the pressed garlic. And then he would add it into the dressings that way. And that was delicious and delightful, and not too, intense with big chunks of garlic.
Chef, someone was asking, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but where one can buy organic edamame. Do you happen to know?
Well, I try and buy organic edamame as much as possible, or non-GMO. And then whether, I try and get it shelled too. So there's those three dynamics that I'm always kind of like tooling around and with the shops and the stores in Honolulu. Whole Foods is the best bet consistently that I can get organic, peeled edamame. Second would be Down to Earth, but it depends on the location of Down to Earth. Some of them, they have freezer space and it sells out fast. Third would be Cuinoa. Fourth would be Foodland, and sometimes Safeway, but those two, often the organic one is in the pot, which isn't a big deal. It's just an extra step of, boiling them and cooking them and then popping them and adding it in. So hopefully that answers your question. I shop around a lot. So
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. So what I have is I have the lime juice, the sesame oil, the avocado oil. If you don't have lime juice, you could do lemon juice, and you could do rice vinegar. Again, this is like, what do you have in your house? These will all work. I did agave today. I do have honey, but my honey is kind of that whipped thick kind, which makes it harder to mix into dressings like this. It's great to spread on things and eat it that way. So I defaulted to the agave, and then I have the grated ginger, the garlic, and the sambal all together here. So I am going to just put them in all together. Oh, and then one tip that I use when I'm measuring is I tend to start with the oil if I'm going to use something sticky next. So like if I'm going to be measuring agave and oil, I will start with the oil, and then the agave or honey will slide off of the measuring spoon easier. That's just something that I tend to do to make life easier when you're cooking. Okay, so you can use a little whisk. I'm just using what I have in front of me, which is my little rubber spatula, to combine that all together. Try not to make a mess. And then I am going to pour that onto the dressing with the intent that it's going to all get eaten tonight. Okay, and then just mix it in. And you can see you can plug in whatever you want here, really. You could, cucumber would be nice, yeah? Celery, something crunchy if you don't have bok choy. You could do some of that Costco spinach. Fresh basil, any kind of other, fresh herbs that we talked about. We got a lot of flavors going here.
Let's say it looks delicious. I want to reach through the screen and grab a spoonful
Oh,
and
yeah.
taste
I wish
it.
I could share it with you too, because
Yeah.
it's a lot. And then what I like to do, and then you can adjust the flavors to taste. You might like it a little more spicy, a little more limey. I have a little bowl here in my fridge. So I had a little bit of fresh lettuce from my friend's farm with some cherry tomatoes. So I was just gonna, for presentation, put a little bit here. So this is how you could make it for something for work. Yeah, take with you a little bit of lettuce.
Wow, beautiful presentation.
It really is.
Yeah.
It makes it, that just looks like something would be nice to bring somewhere as well. And it's just not,
Yeah.
I feel like I could do that and look really fancy. It's great.
All right.
Yep.
There's so much to just
Summer
having a
parties
little
that are
bit.
coming up, right? Good healthy
Yeah.
choice to bring, makes a good amount. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we can put some toasted almonds on it. Yeah, and then, so I tend to always just add that at the end so that it's not, I just don't like my nuts to get soggy. If you're going to go the effort of toasting them, that's just me. But
I agree.
Yeah.
This
So,
is why you're the chef, though. This is why we tune in to hear all these things.
just little tips, just, and a lot of it, because I cook for people who might not be eating the food right away. I'm constantly thinking, how is this going to be the best tomorrow, or how is it going to be, for instance, that idea of not tossing in the dressing if they might not eat it for 2 days, have the dressing on the side. So, but sometimes dressing is good, because it soaks in and then it, enhances the flavor. So it's just, I'm, kind of always thinking along the lines of how is this going to work best with the way it's going to be presented. But that's just my little, my little world.
So there was a question, I don't know if you buy them this way, but how you sliver your almonds. Do you buy them already done, or do you do that?
These are actually gifted to me. They were from Trader Joe's. I did toast them, and I want to share with you that I did burn them today. So, it never ends. It's a constant learning process. Watch your nuts when you toast them. Don't try and multitask when you're heating your nuts. I put them in a saute pan. I put them on medium heat. I set the timer for 5 minutes, and that was too much. Yeah, that didn't work. So.
I'm laughing with you because
I
I'm
know.
notorious for, I put them in, we have a
burning
toaster
nuts.
oven. I put them in there and I'm
Yeah.
doing other stuff, prepping
Yeah.
other ingredients until
Yeah.
all of a sudden I smell something. I go, oh my gosh, I forgot about
I know. I felt so bad too. I'm like, that's a half cup of nuts. This is
Yeah,
not.
and they're not cheap either.
No, but yeah.
yes,
So okay, along that line. So yes, I buy them this way. You can also buy them. How they're thinly sliced, how they have the little brown around the edge, like so they're like flat pieces.
Yeah.
That would be nice here. Those are more fragile when you're trying to toast them, so really be careful. Go on like medium low heat or low, and just stand there for 5 minutes and stir it, or shake the pan. I had a little saute pan. What was I going to say? Store your nuts in Hawaii. It's best to store them in the freezer. I tend to take a bag of nuts. If I opened them, I put them in a Ziploc bag around it and keep them in the freezer. And then I will actually put a Sharpie on it with a date, because things go in that freezer and I forget, when did I open that? How long has it been there? So for me, it just helps to kind of guide, I've had those nuts for 6 months and I should probably move them. And I watch the expiration date, because nuts and seeds get rancid really quick here in Hawaii. So that's just something that I do. For me, it helps me. And grains, all of it, right? I always try and seal everything, just because it's just amazing what can find its way in. A grain, rice, everything.
Absolutely. I know we go to the mainland to visit family and you're like, oh, it's weird to not put the bread in the fridge or to put these things. You actually have room in your fridge for other things. But any other questions, you guys? And then I'm sure you're going to show the finished product of the other one. Okay.
And now we're down to our last 5 minutes. That just went so quickly. What I love about it is honestly 2 great meals that can go a long time. We do talk so much about prepping meals if you're trying to pay attention for weight loss, or if you're trying to make good changes, or just trying to work on portions. It does make a difference if you do some prep and get things divided out. Because I know me, if I saw that big, beautiful bowl, it would be hard for me to know what's a good portion of that. Grains are not bad. They're good for us. They're healthy. We just have to watch and think of our healthy plate as a quarter of a plate instead of what we used to think is most of it. Right, Heather?
Absolutely.
Oh, yum. This is about halfway through, but you can see the cheese is melting.
Wow.
Yeah, this is this is like the ultimate comfort food to me.
I bet it smells really good in your house right now too.
I bet.
It does. Let me pull it a little closer. I don't know if that'll help, but I'll pull it up a little closer. But yeah, it's really nice if you put some of those sliced mushrooms on the top with some nuts with the cheese. It's a really pretty presentation if you're taking this to a potluck.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then I just quickly want to also show that I love kitchen shears. I don't know if you can see, but I just love, these are great for slicing any kind of fresh herb, spice, mint, basil without, it turning brown. And I just use these all the time. And they don't have to be expensive. I actually got these at Target for $3.99, and they work great. I mean, there's all kinds of really nice, expensive ones out there, but I generally can, I get one of these about once a year. And these are wonderful little tools to have in the kitchen. They help a lot.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, I know I want to give us our little, I know we're down to the last couple minutes. Heather, you might want to, as she puts that back in to cook, put up on the screen for our group of people
All
here,
right.
anything about
I
our
will do
classes.
that,
Chef,
and
that
then
was beautiful.
we'll
Thank you.
answer, Catherine and Eric will get to your question in just one moment. Just want to talk through this part here before if people do need to jump off right away. All right, hopefully you can see this.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, we hope that you enjoyed our time together today and were inspired by Chef Alyssa's awesome recipes. We hope you'll join us again next month. We do this every month, so come and join us. Our topic next month is going to be magic with mushrooms. So it'll be May 22nd, 5 to 6 p.m. Just a reminder that you do need to call and reserve your spot at 432-2260. Else, maybe you can put it in the chat if you want to join the next one. As a reminder too, for Kaiser Permanente members, if you want to partner with one of our wellness coaches, to start taking these incremental steps on improving your diet or any one of these areas on the screen here, we're here to support you with that. This is a free service for Kaiser members, and the sessions are done all over the telephone, usually range maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and we help you to create really, actionable steps, accountability, support, and just keep you moving forward with your health goals. So this doesn't just become one recipe that you have in your head somewhere, but we want to actually put it into practice. In addition to this class, we have lots of other classes we hope you'll check out. I know it's a little bit small on the screen here. I'm going to put a link in the chat that will take you to this same flyer, and we'll always have the most current one available. But all of these classes are offered virtually. We have a wide range. Maybe you want to focus on a specific health condition such as prediabetes or diabetes or heart health, or if you want to stay in the nutrition lane, we've got a follow-up class called Viva Veggies, which is an introduction to plant strong eating, and we have a Viva Veggies part 2. So all just to support, right, these small changes in these eating behaviors to help us to be as healthy as we can possibly be. So with that, thank you for joining us today. Remember your phrase, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. And Chef, I'm going to turn these couple questions that we had that came in over to you, and then any other questions you guys have, feel free to put them in the chat. We want to make sure they get answered before you go. So one person asked, can you sub farro for quinoa?
Yes, definitely. Cooking time's different, but just follow the instructions on the package.
All right, that's an easy question. And then is it possible to heat, I'm guessing the brown rice recipe on the stove instead of the oven?
I would not do it in that format. You could do the like patties, I would cook them in the patties, maybe in a nonstick pan. Do it that way, form them into patties and then turn them over and brown them that way. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, other questions? Allison, anything else you want to add?
No, fantastic. Chef Alyssa, as always, you've inspired us and we're ready to get cooking. So thank you so much for another great class. We look forward to next month, a little magic with mushrooms.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chef Alyssa. Thank you all for
Have a good
joining us. We
evening.
look forward to having you come to more classes with us. Thank you, Heather, for having the PowerPoint and everything together. And
Yeah. Thanks,
yeah,
Allison. Thanks, Chef.
happy cooking, right?
Thank you.
And eating.
Happy eating, happy cooking. I know, I'm really hungry. I got to get my quinoa back out.
Come on over.
I do have a question for you, personal one. How long does quinoa last? Like, I kind of have some in my cupboard that I've had for a while. Should I just go get some new quinoa if it's been any
Well,
thoughts on
I
that?
Is it
follow
bulk or
the
closed?
Closed.
Oh, yeah, I just follow the package date.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's
Oh,
not the package, then I usually pop that like in the freezer. So if you feel like it's been too long,
probably.
yeah.
I'm motivated now. I'm going to go get myself some good new quinoa. It's in, I
Okay.
take them out sometimes and put them in the jars. So,
Yeah, that's what I do
Jars
too
are great.
sometimes.
I'm
Yep.
a big jar fan.
Yep.
Big
Okay.
fan.
Thanks. That was just
Okay,
my
take
question.
care.
So thanks again. Thanks for your time, everyone. Have a great night.
Night. Bye.
Bye.